Hey guys, hope everyone is doing well. So I've just finished making 2 PC builds, one for me and one for my brother. And man, it was a grueling journey to get it all done. It was my first time building a PC, and for those guys still looking for parts, I feel your pain. I really do. For those unaware, buying computer parts, specifically graphics cards, but also CPUs or central processing units, have become tough to buy. Tough is actually an understatement. It's basically impossible to just stumble upon one online, as bots in the employ of resellers buy them up in a matter of seconds to minutes. I don't want to get into why there has been such a shortage or why this has come about. The short of it is cryptocurrency, the virus, lockdowns, and people just being extremely desperate to get their hands on new hardware. You can find tons of explanations on various TechTuber channels. I just want to share with you some of the things that have worked for me, as I have managed to acquire a Radeon 6800 XT, an RTX 3080, and an RTX 3090. I'm not a scalper, just had a need for multiple builds for me and my bro, and in my primary build I'm using a 6800 XT and a Ryzen 5900X, and I'm very happy with the performance. These are some of the top end parts, and I share them with you not to flex, but to let you know that it is possible to find parts for MSRP, as I did not buy any of these parts from a scalper. First things first, MSRP has changed. What was originally advertised at launch is no longer MSRP, unless you get your hands on the Founders Edition, or what AMD calls the reference card. These things are harder to find than the actual other graphics cards, so I would just ignore the old MSRPs if you're planning on buying a card in 2021. Also, in my experience, I found that the 3080s, the 6800 XTs, and the 3070s have been the most difficult cards to find, with the highest end cards quite easy to find, like the 6900 XT and the 3090. Easy to find, relatively speaking, of course. These cards still sell out in seconds to minutes online, but in my experience, I just found them a little easier to find in physical stores, and you have just a little bit more time ordering them online. It might be just because these don't net as much in the resale market, or they're just not as good value, but that's just how it is right now, at least in my experience. And that's good news for those guys that are trying to get the highest end cards, and bad news if you're trying to get the less expensive cards. So the first piece of advice is more for people that live in big cities with access to brick and mortar retailers, as I found these spots are usually the best places to look. You're not competing with bots, and a reseller can only be at one place at one time. I managed to score a 3080 and a 6800 XT by these means. A good local retailer for me was Micro Center, but if there's a Fry's Electronics or any particular local retailer that sells computer parts, those would be great places to check out. I would just go in there and maybe chat up with some of the employees and the manager to see how their process is for checking out cards. I wouldn't just go in there and ask them, hey, do you guys have a graphics card in stock? Because they've answered that question millions of times, and I imagine it gets pretty annoying. What I would do, and what I did, is end up just asking them, listen, what's the best way for me to get a card? What do I need to do? And at my particular Micro Center, they were pretty cool. They told me straight up, you got to get here a couple hours before we open, and on the particular truck days. So for them, their truck days were Wednesdays and Fridays. And in my experience, there were dudes camped out way before the store opened. I'm talking 6-7 hours before they even opened. And I found, in my experience at least, talking to them, chatting them up, they were willing to share a lot of useful info. So I think it's definitely worth talking to them, but you got to go early. And it took me about 3 tries to end up getting the card I wanted. And the advice for how to approach these stores are probably unique to your situation and where you are, your locality. But the one thing I would recommend is, if you plan on going and camping out before they open, go as early as possible. There's really no point if you're already there wasting your time. You might as well get there as early as possible to ensure that you have the best chance possible to get your card. For those that don't have an electronic retailer nearby, one thing you can do is program a bot to scour Amazon for you. It's not something that I've tried personally or something I would do, but one of my kinfolk actually used this to personally score a 3070 off Amazon, so I know it works. I'll link the bot that he used and instructions on how to code it down below. From what I've heard, it isn't too difficult to do with a little bit of patience, but this is one way that you can kind of get around always hunting down and trying to find a card online. If you live in a rural area or just in a place that doesn't have large retailers and you're not comfortable using a bot, then I would suggest downloading every online electronics retailer app that you can find or have access to. In the US, that would be Newegg, Best Buy, GameStop, and others, and get on their notifications for stock replenishments, and follow certain bots on Twitter that tweet out specific drops. I'll put 2 bots that I followed in the description below. Also, this might not be the most secure thing to do, but you probably should load your payment info on these various retail apps and have it ready to go right away, as just putting the item in your cart isn't enough. You basically have to check out immediately, otherwise the item's going to be gone, and even then it may not be enough. There were many times I managed to check out and complete the order on Newegg, but then a minute later they canceled the order due to stock issues. It was really disappointing, but ultimately keeping the payment info on the app eventually scored me a card on Newegg, and then you could just take your payment info off those apps afterwards. One last thing to do is check out various Discords and forums which discuss various stock drops. One site I found was nowinstock.net, which I'll link below. The site itself is useless, but if you scroll all the way down to the bottom where the comments are, there are various people, both scalpers and consumers, that are just trying to get cards, who chat with one another and share useful information regarding cards and stock drops of CPUs and GPUs. So there you have it, guys. Some quick tips that I thought would help you find some cards. It was a really unpleasant experience for me trying to get these parts, and I'm really glad I'm done with this. So I hope things get smoother for you guys, especially with these tips. Also, last thing, if you have a chance to score a card at MSRP, I say buy it without hesitation, even if it's not a card that you particularly wanted. Let's say you wanted another AIB card or processor or a different model, because just the way things are right now with the stock, there's no guarantee that stock is going to normalize. I don't think it's going to normalize this year, and with the prices continuing to go up, it's going to be a better idea just to buy something. And if you do manage to find the one you particularly wanted later on, you can always flip the one that you bought before for a profit. So I hope this helps. If I forgot any tips, or if anyone else has something to share that they've managed to score a card using easier means, please put them in the comments below. Share it with your fellows. Good luck, my brothers. Peace.